I decided to make this video because, first of all, it drives my daughter crazy that I'm going to have a YouTube channel. And the more she tries to talk me out of it, the more she convinces me I should do it. Plus, this is the new media. Well, it's an old media that's really developed. What you have is basically a place where you have 100 million TV channels. Okay, so this is definitely the best form of medium. It's a way for me to reach out to you, talk to you guys about stuff, and hopefully I can help you or answer some questions or whatever. So probably the main reason I'm doing this is because I'm trying to enhance the client experience. My family and I love Disney, and one thing we learn is that they're always on the cutting edge of different things. And quite frankly, they're always looking for new things. They're always trying new things, and they're always bringing quality into it and trying to always constantly making it better. And that's what I'm committed to do, making things, getting things to be better than they are. Now, they call me the Wall Street Cowboy. I call myself the Wall Street Cowboy because when I used to work for Lehman Brothers, all the guys, since I rode horses, used to call me Cowboy in the office. And when I used to go to the barn, they used to call me Wall Street. Because, when you work with a bunch of guys who live on the east side of Manhattan and you ride horses, they think you're like Clint Eastwood. But when you go to the guys out at the stable who ride horses all day, they think you're like a city slicker, so they call you Wall Street. So I just came up with the name Wall Street Cowboy. And, I used to work in the World Trade Center and all kinds of stuff, and that's totally another story. We'll bring that up another time, but, I worked there for about 11 years. Now, what I'm here to do is, like I said, is to improve the customer experience, make things better for you, and explain things to you because I get calls all the time, even though I hardly ever bet the horses. People seem to find what I have to say very important, or they take it in, and they seem to, do a little better job at their handicapping. So let me just go through what I have to say, and if you have any questions, you can call or email me. If you want to email me, it's the Wall Street Cowboy at gmail.com. And you spell Wall Street, spell it all out. And so now here's the thing. Years ago, I spent a lot of time with a fella who, he was the best handier capper at the racetrack. His fellow named Stuart Silverstein. Now, the guys who know horse racing in New York, they know who he is. Okay, and Stuart actually passed away a couple of years ago, or about a year and a half ago. And in his last few years, when I used to own horses, he would always come by the office and he would sit with me because he wanted to go to the track, and he got a ride over there with the guys from another stable, but he didn't want to walk around the backstretch and all that other stuff. So he'd sit with me for a couple hours, and eventually I kind of put him to work. And and we usually started later in the day, so he would sit there and we would talk about things, and he would work on his handicapping because he was the only person I ever met. Well, actually, there was two people who I ever met who could ever make money handicapping, and that was Stuart Silverstein and a guy named Howie Rosenberg, and they both did very well. And I'll tell you something, out of all the other campers I've met, I've never met anybody who can really make a profit besides them. Okay, so one of the things was I spent a lot of time with Stuart, and Stuart showed me different things, and we got kind of friendly towards the end of his life, and we enjoyed each other's company and all this other stuff. So I would go to the track with him once in a while, and he would show me, why he does things. He liked teaching a little bit. He used to do some side work for a school, and he loved to teach people, and I was interested, so he would, I'm sitting here with my dog. He just came up to me. That's what you need when you work on Wall Street. Is you need a dog, because you don't have to worry about your friends on Wall Street because you don't have any. This is my dog, Fritzy. Now, Fritzy is my best pal, and he goes with me everywhere. And he's a little dachshund. You know how dogs little and love everybody. He's little and don't like anybody. But he's my pal, and we go everywhere together. And Garden Gecko said it right. If you want a friend on Wall Street, you get a dog. So that's what I have. And so he got to sit here. But when we go out for a ride or something, the truck, he considers it his truck, not our truck. But anyway, so I also had the pleasure of meeting a couple of times, and I listened to a lot of the things I did. Frankly, I didn't even know who he was when I met him. It's a fellow named Martin Schwartz. Now, if you guys want to know Martin Schwartz, if you've never heard of him, he's probably the world's greatest day trader. I mean, he made millions. And I mean, people say, oh, I got, 30% or 20% this year, and he got 20% last month. He's just that good. And it was kind of interesting when I met him because we had the same trainer, and I met him at the horse sales, Isaac Tipton, and he was there buying horses, and we had a nice conversation and stuff. But I didn't really even know who he was. Okay, so then one day I was looking at YouTube, and I said, I know this guy, because I trade stock too, but I wasn't really into it that much when he was doing it. When he was famous. Well, you know what I'm saying. So what happened was I said, wow, I know this guy. And if he could do this, I could do this. Okay, so, he helped me with trading, and I listened to him and all this other stuff. But I started to follow him a little bit, and I realized he's probably the only guy who ever made a real good profit on a regular basis in the horse business, who actually raced them and stuff. So he had a really good strategy. And I remember the one thing that he always says. He says, do you want the action, or do you want to win? Okay, and you say, well, what does that mean? Well, what that means is that if you handicap, do you just want to bet the races for fun, or do you want to take money and bring it home and make money at it, or whatever you do? So the gist of it is that what he's saying is that sometimes you like the action from something, but actually loving the action hurts you in the money you can make, because you forget about the winning part of the making it work. Okay, now, like I said, Martin not only got trading to work, which a lot of people can't, he got horse racing to work, which nobody seems to be able to do, as far as like making a profit on a regular basis. So that's his saying. And you have to look at things differently when you want to win at something. Okay, that is what he's really saying. You have to play it different than everything else. So how does that play into handicapping? Well, the thing him and Stewart used to always say, and I used to do with Stewart, is you got to do the work. Okay, now Stewart was a very successful handicapper. Okay, but Stewart did hours worth of work before it's post time. He would get something called the Ragusan Sheets, and he would look over them for a couple of hours. He didn't bet all the races. He bet 2 tracks usually, a New York track, and then what he would do is he would bet San Anito or somewhere out in California. He actually liked California better than New York because the weather is better and it's easier to handicap. There's less factors. He has a better chance of making money. Okay, so that's what he told me. Now, let me tell you something. Part of the reason, I always got along with Stewart is I was never a diehard handicapper. I just liked horses. But he said to me, you know more than you think. That's why you would be a good handicapper if you ever did it on a regular basis, because you know things nobody else knows. I said, well, I've owned quite a few horses, and I watch how they run. And that's one thing I learned, is when you own horses, you look at a race much differently than a guy betting the race. Okay? So, you're always watching your horse when he's running. When you're watching a race, you might be watching the horse you bet, the other horses, and all this other stuff. But you're very in tune to your horse when he's running, whether he's up the track or in first place. So that's a very important thing, because you learn how horses develop and get better. So here's what I'm saying. What I would suggest to you, and as far as what they both say about doing the work and wanting to win rather than just liking the action, what I would do, and what they would always, or what Stewart would always do, is he would go through the races, and he might pick 2 races all day he'd want to bet, and he would wait for them. Okay, he didn't bet everything, because you got to remember something. Okay, if you feel strongly about a race, you're more likely to make money off of that race than all the other races, because somewhere in your brain you have dissected that field, whether consciously or subconsciously, and you figured out why this horse should come in. That's the most valuable thing you have. Okay? It's not all the numbers, not all this other stuff. It's something you realize, or some type of relationship you come up with that makes it that you feel strongly about that race. Okay? So, what Stewart would do is now he would pick out the races he wanted to bet. Okay? He would have 2 races. And then he would go through those sheets for about another half hour each. And he would say, you know what? He would say, I really like this horse. I don't want to bet this horse. He said, no, I feel pretty good about it. Then he would check the odds. And he would say, okay, I should get at least 10 or 15 to 1 on this horse. Well, if you got 5 to 1, he might still bet the horse anyway because he feels strongly about it. But on the other hand, he might pass. Okay, he's not going to bet a 3 to 5 shot because he knows that, look, people lose on those. Okay, and if you make money, you're not really making enough. So what you need is you need to hit longer shots. Okay, that's one mistake. That's what I mean about people liking the action. They want to win, but they're really not making anything when they win. Okay, you have to one, pick the races that you feel strongest about and forget all the other ones. And if you do want to bet all the other races, you got to allocate your money to, let's say, 80% of the money to the 2 races you really feel strongly about, and just kind of play with the other money, because then you still have a chance. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying to you is that, like I said, you got to do the work. Okay, you got to decide if you want to win or just have a good time or pass the time. Now, quite frankly, when you go to the track, about 99.9% of the people really aren't doing a lot of the work. Okay, what they do is they look at the form and they run some numbers, and that's it. Now, what you have to, when you feel strongly about a horse, whether you know it or not, like I said, you've dissected the race somehow. And there's a reason you feel that way, and there's a good chance that the reason you feel that way is a good chance it's right. Okay, so like I said, Stewart would always bet Santa Anita. He thought it was an easier track, and that's where he did the best at, even though he was in New York. Okay, and I'll tell you quite frankly, is that when you bet a horse race, and probably you all know this, when you bet a horse race, what's happening is you're not betting against the track, you're betting against the other handicappers. Okay, so you're playing a game against each other, which is great because horse racing is probably the only thing you can gamble on, or one of the only things you can gamble on, where if you win, they don't throw you out. Okay, so if you were a great card player or a blackjack player and you won millions of dollars, you know what? They probably ask you not to come back. There's actually a horse handicapper. His name was Don Johnson. I think he was president of Philadelphia Park for years. And what Don Johnson did was, he retired. And when he retired, what happened is that he needed something to do. And he wasn't really a handicapper, but he knew about betting the races. He knew the races, so he started to go to the races. And a lot of handicappers, a lot of people don't realize this. Probably the best gamblers are the handicappers. Now, why is that? Because handicapping is a little complicated. It's not like pulling a lever or flipping a card, okay? And one thing a handicapper knows is takeout, okay? And he knows that any way he can decrease that takeout increases his chances of the money he might make, okay? So what Don Johnson did was took what he knew from betting horse races and went over to the tables, or to the card games. And what he did was he actually started, I guess, with a credit of $50,000 that they gave him. And but what he did was he changed the rule. He got them to change the rules. It was in the middle of the recession. So let's say the average gambler, you have a 45% chance to win, and they have a 55% chance to win. The house does. Well, he changed those odds to maybe he had a 53% chance to win, and the house had 47% chance to win because they needed somebody to gamble. Okay, and he played big numbers and he bet big, and so what happened was he ended up cleaning out these casinos for like $16 or $20 million in like a year or less than a year. Well, I don't think he's on their list to invite back, but what that started from was he's a handicapper, and he knew probably the most important thing was he get some type of rebate, which was important, and that's what he did. And he only shifted the odds a little bit, but it made all the difference in the world because his game was pretty good. He could play for a long time, and the longer he played, the better chance he had of making money. And he also just played the casino. He didn't play anybody else, and that's probably why, he's probably not around anymore. But so now a lot of you guys were asking me, well, I had mentioned a trainer. I said what you should do is his trainer has run 9 races, and I said what it is he hasn't come in or hit the board. But I said, I know the way he trains, and this is important too. And I know he races the horses fit. Okay, so what does that mean? What it means, if you have a trainer like Todd Pletcher or Rudy Rodriguez or somebody like that, what it means is that they have that horse at 99% of as fast as he's going to be the first time that horse goes out on the track. Okay, because they want to win. For big trainers, it's percentages. The more races they win, the higher their win percentages, the more horses that come in their barn. It's just how it is. Everybody wants to win. What a lot of people don't know is that you're not always the guy who wins. You know, they could be tough on your horse, or your horse gets hurt, or something like that, or he has to be laid up, and all of a sudden you're not running. But anyway, so what happens when you have a guy like Ken is that Ken knows that every horse has so many races in him. Okay, and the best way and fastest way and most complete way to get your horse fit is if, like, he's at 80%, and you start putting him in races. Why? Because he's going to put out an effort in a race that he's going to get. It's going to be like 5 works. It's kind of like when you're lifting weights and you do 10 reps, and everybody stops at 10, but you try to do that 11th. And when you do that 11th rep, when you're lifting weights, that's where all the growth is. That's where you can hardly do it. Somebody got to spot you. That's a race. That's where you get your strongest. But when you just go to the track and work the horse out, it's like you're doing 10 reps. But when you go to the race, you put out, the horse puts out that extra energy and works that much harder. So a race might be like 4 or 5 works. And your horse will get fitter, but it will go forward on the track. And when the horse goes forward, what happens is he could be 1 or 2 seconds faster than he was in the last race. Well, you got to figure a second is 5 lengths. So if he's 2 seconds faster, a second and a half faster, he's 7 to 10 lengths ahead of where he was before. That's the difference between 6 or 7 and winning the race by a length or 2. Okay, and that's how I knew the horse was going to come in. I knew Ken's training style. I used it years ago on our horses. It was better to run. We found it was better to win at 10. We actually won at 11% chance. It was better to win at 11% and run a lot more, because even though you're winning at a much lower clip, you were making money the whole way. So every time your horse went out there, you were making money. The horse was getting fitter, and the horses last longer after that, because when they come back to the barn, you don't have to train them real hard because they're already fit. And that's what Ken does. And that's what I knew what he was doing. And that's when I told you guys, I said, watch this guy. And I said, what'll happen is he start to come in. Now, 9 races, he doesn't have a win. The 10th race, he comes in at 40 to 1. The 11th race, he pays 5 races later, he pays 30 to 1. And then 5 races after that, he's paying $138, 70 to 1. Why? Because his horses did not figure. The handicappers were looking for times they could look at. They were looking for their improvement. But if the horse is out on the track, you don't have to work him. He's already been worked, but they can't see the improvement. Okay, so what they do is they throw the horse out, and the horse kind of goes under the radar, and all of a sudden, boom, he's in the. Everybody's looking at him. What the hell happened? Where did he come from? Well, he didn't figure, but if you knew racing and you knew how to train horses, he figured. Okay, so that's what I do. So also too, horses make a lot of times a big step forward on the turf. Okay, what I did was I sent you guys a list a few weeks ago, and I sent it out about a year and change ago. And the truth of the matter is, I never heard anything back from anybody. So all good, I just didn't send it out again. Then one of the guys in New Mexico said, "You know what, Bill? I did okay with that list." So I said, "You know what? I'm going to do it again." And a couple of people have done it, and I've sent it out, and it seemed to work okay for them. So, basically it's a list of sires that are kind of obscure, that are turf sires that nobody really knows are turf sires. And the reason nobody really knows they're turf sires is because the stallions of these horses got very small books, which means they didn't get a lot of mares bred to them, so they didn't have a lot of foals on the ground. There's a horse in there by Good and Tough. And Good and Tough was actually a very good turf sire. But they didn't really know it because he didn't have a lot of babies on the ground. He moved to Louisiana. They didn't run him a lot on the turf. And it turned out like 7 or 8 of his races, he won on the turf. He ran 8 races on the turf and won 7 of them. Who's better than him? Who's better than that at first sire? So that's what it's a list of. They're probably obscure. A lot of them you've never heard of. A lot of them have been on the list for a long time. Horses come and go off the list all the time. But what I do is I try to give you the most accurate list. Now, the reason also two horses go forward on the turf is because a lot of times the horse is either runs on the turf or he runs on the dirt. People are saying, no, if he runs on the turf, he can run on the dirt. It's not true. Usually a horse is either or. I've seen horses come in at 50 to 1 because they put them on the turf. Okay? It's the shape of the foot. It's the fact that he's not getting dirt in his face. He doesn't like it. If he goes forward, he probably really likes the turf. It's more comfortable for him. or her. What happens is when horses run on the dirt, their feet slide, or their hooves slide. When they run on the dirt, or on the turf, on the turf, what happens is that they stick there like cleats, and they move forward. So they got a different sense of what's underneath them. Okay, and a lot of horses like the turf more than the dirt. In fact, in Europe, just about all the races are on the turf, I think. And so now there's one more thing I think will help you. Is a lot of times they give you the price the horse sold at. Sometimes they give you the stud fee. If they show you the price of what the horse sold at and what sale or auction the horse sold at, rather than knowing what the price of the horse what was the price of the horse when it sold, the smartest thing you can do is go back and look at the auction results. Keeneland, Fisig-Tipton, all of these auction houses point their results, and they usually give you the date of the sale and the hip, or when he was in the form. So you can look and you go back there, and the most important thing is who bought the horse. Because people pay a lot of money for horses, and sometimes they can't run at all. Sometimes the guy buying the horse doesn't really know what he's doing. Okay? But there's a handful of people that are really, really good at buying horses. And if you see, after a while, after looking at these things, you'll know who the better names are. Years ago it was Buzz Chase. Buzz Chase was a freaking great horse buyer. He bought Unbridled Song. He bought a lot of good horses. If I were a handicapper and I saw Buzz Chase had bought the horse, that would step it up a couple of notches. I remember, truth of the matter is, and I don't even know how he became one, Gary Contessa is a great picker of young horses. He's fantastic. I don't even know why. I mean, it's not like he grew up on a farm or something, but he was very, very good at picking young horses. So I remember one time I looked and went back to the sale, and I looked at the results, said Contessa. I said, you know what? Unless you follow racing, you don't really know how good he is. So you know what? I bet the horse, and the horse paid 10 to 1 and 1. So that's probably one of the most important things of information you can get is who bought the horse. And they listed it at all these sales. Okay, and that'll help you. Now, these are just a few pointers. If you have any more questions or you want to give me some feedback, go ahead. If you're interested in getting some of the stuff I send out, just write the Wall Street Cowboy at gmail.com, and we'll go from there. Listen, thanks for your time. Thanks for watching this video. I went through some of the other videos. They were great, but I felt that they were pretty general. I felt this would be more specific. I also know that, in the handicapping game, unless you hit a long shot, it's hard to make money at it, and maybe you won't make money, but maybe you just do a little better. So I'm signing off, the Wall Street Cowboy. Thank you for your time. My clients who do business with you, thank you. I love you. You're the best. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye. Oh, yeah. Like and subscribe. Okay, I got to remember to tell you that. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.